The moment my daughter-in-law stepped through my front door, I felt a shift in the air I couldn't quite name. She stood in my living room, her eyes traveling slowly across every shelf, every photograph, every corner I had spent 30 years filling with memories. And then she smiled. Not the kind of smile that warms your heart, but the kind that makes you feel like you're being measured for something you didn't agree to. "What a beautiful house," she said. Her voice was soft, almost sweet. "My mother will love it. We're moving in." I remember the silence that followed. It stretched like a held breath. My son, her husband, my only child, stood behind her, his eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't say a word. He never did when she spoke. I had built this house with my own hands, or at least with the sweat of 15 years of double shifts at the hospital. Every floorboard, every window frame, every rose bush in the garden, they held a piece of my story. This was the home where I raised my son after his father walked out. This was the kitchen where I taught him to make pancakes on Saturday mornings. This was the porch where I sat alone on my 50th birthday, realizing I had given everything to everyone and kept nothing for myself. And now she was claiming it, as if it had always been hers. But what I didn't know that day was that she had been planning this for months. She had already convinced my son that I was getting too old to live alone, that the house was too big for one person, that it would be selfish of me to keep it. She had planted seeds of doubt so carefully, so patiently, that even I started to wonder if maybe she was right, until I found the letter. The letter wasn't meant for me. It had fallen out of her purse one evening when she came over for dinner. I picked it up to hand it back to her, but the words on the page stopped me cold. "The house is confirmed. Once she signs the power of attorney, we can proceed with the sale. Estimated value, $420,000. Your cut, 60%. My hands trembled as I read it again. This wasn't about moving in to take care of me. This was about taking everything. She wasn't planning to live in my home. She was planning to sell it. And she had already found a buyer. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. My mind was spinning, my heart breaking into pieces I didn't know how to pick up. I looked at my son across the dinner table, laughing at something she said, completely blind to the woman sitting beside him. How had I raised a man who couldn't see a snake coiled at his feet? The next few weeks were a blur of quiet investigation. I started keeping records. I checked my mail before she could get to it. I installed a small camera in the living room, not to spy, but to protect myself. And what I captured shattered me. She came over when I was at work. I watched the footage later that night, her walking through my rooms, opening my drawers, taking pictures of my jewelry box, my antique vase, my late mother's silver set. She was cataloging everything, like I was already gone. I confronted my son first. I sat him down in the same kitchen where he'd eaten 1,000 bowls of cereal, and I told him everything. The letter, the camera footage, the plan. He looked at me with those tired eyes and said, "Mom, you're misunderstanding her. She's just stressed about the move." That's when I realized I had lost him, not to another woman, but to a version of himself that had been slowly erased over years of manipulation. He didn't see her because he didn't want to see, and I knew then that if I was going to save my home and maybe even my son, I couldn't play by their rules. I called a lawyer the next morning, not the one she had mentioned in the letter. I found my own, a sharp, quiet woman named Elena, who specialized in elder financial fraud. I brought her everything, the letter, the footage, a list of every suspicious conversation I'd documented. "What do you want to do?" Elena asked me. "I want to expose her, but I want to do it in a way that wakes my son up." So we set a trap. I told my daughter-in-law that I had decided to move into a small senior apartment. I said I was tired of maintaining the big house, and that I'd spoken to a realtor about listing it. I watched her eyes light up, that greedy, hungry spark she couldn't hide. She came over the next weekend with papers, power of attorney forms, she said, to help me manage the sale. I signed them with a smile, knowing that Elena had already filed a caveat on the property. Nothing could be sold without my explicit, verified consent. Then I invited my son over, and told him I wanted him to be there when I handed her the keys. When they both arrived, I sat them down in the living room. I poured tea. I smiled. And then I played the recording, the one where she discussed her 60% cut with the buyer. The color drained from my son's face. He turned to her, and for the first time in years, he saw her. She tried to lie, she tried to twist it, but the evidence was there, undeniable and cold. I didn't press charges. That was my gift to my son, so he wouldn't have to visit his wife in a courtroom. But I did file a restraining order. and I made sure every real estate agent in the county knew her name. The divorce was quiet. He moved back into my guest room for a while, and we rebuilt our relationship one dinner at a time. He's learning to trust himself again. As for me, I still live in my house. Every rosebush, every floorboard, every memory, they're still mine. And now I finally understand something I should have known all along. A home isn't just walls and a roof. It's the boundary you set around your soul. And no one, not even family, has the right to cross it without your permission. Sometimes the cruelest betrayal comes wrapped in a sweet voice and a calm smile. But the sweetest justice is watching the truth set everything free.